Hello, fellow heirs, and welcome back to Weekday Wind Down with the Word, where we are reading through the book of Genesis. And today we will be reading the 33rd chapter of Genesis in the NLT version. So, without any further ado, let's start reading. Then Jacob looked up and saw Esau coming with his 400 men. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and his two servant wives. He put the servant wives and their children at the front, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph last. Then Jacob went on ahead. As he approached his brother, he bowed to the ground 7 times before him. Then Esau ran to meet him and embraced him, threw his arms around his neck, and kissed him, and they both wept. Then Esau looked at the women and children and asked, "Who are these people with you?" "These are the children God has graciously given to me, your servant," Jacob replied. Then the servant wives came forward with their children and bowed before him. Next came Leah with her children, and they bowed before him. Finally, Joseph and Rachel came forward and bowed before him. "And what were all the flocks and herds I met as I came?" Esau asked. Jacob replied, "They are a gift, my lord, to ensure your friendship." "My brother, I have plenty," Esau answered. "Keep what you have for yourself." But Jacob insisted, "No, if I have found favor with you, please accept this gift from me. And what a relief to see your friendly smile. It is like seeing the face of God. Please take this gift I have brought to you, for God has been very gracious to me. I have more than enough." And because Jacob insisted, Esau finally accepted the gift. "Well," Esau said, "let's be going. I will lead the way." But Jacob replied, "You can see, my lord, that some of the children are very young, and the flocks and herds have their young too. If they are driven too hard, even for one day, all the animals could die. Please, my lord, go ahead of your servant. We will follow slowly at a pace that is comfortable for the livestock and the children. I will meet you at Seir." "All right," Esau said, "but at least let me assign some of my men to guide and protect you." Jacob responded, "That's not necessary. It's enough that you receive me warmly, my lord." So Esau turned around and started back to Seir that same day. Jacob, on the other hand, traveled on to Succoth. There he built himself a house and made shelters for his livestock. That is why this place is called Succoth, which means shelters. Later, having traveled all the way from Padan Aram, Jacob arrived safely at the town of Shechem in the land of Canaan. There he set up camp outside the town. Jacob brought the plot of land where he camped from the family of Hamor, the family of Shechem, for 100 pieces of silver. And there he built an altar and named it El Elohe Israel. And that concludes Genesis 33. Well, there were a couple of things that really stood out to me in this chapter. One was with Esau, because once I saw how Esau was going to react once he saw Jacob, I realized he had a forgiving heart. He could have held on to what Jacob did to him and not forgiven him. And he could have really came to Joseph as Joseph expected. Joseph expected for him to be upset and to kill him and his family, to wipe him out, because he knew what he had done to him. And so he was afraid, but Esau had a forgiving heart. And that's just a lesson to me today. And I hope you guys as well see that lesson, that, God forgive us, for everything we do. He forgives us, and the blood wipes it away, and so Jacob tricked Esau into giving him his birthright. And he could have held that against Jacob for the rest of his life, but he didn't. He chose to forgive him, just like Christ forgave us. And if Christ forgives us for all that we do to our Father in heaven, surely we should forgive others. Now, sometimes we have to change the relationship, but we should forgive them, depending on if it's a very harmful relationship for us to stay in. We may have to remove ourselves out of that relationship. However, we can still forgive that person in our heart and not hold it against them. But sometimes if it's there's a word that I'm looking for, or toxic. If it's a toxic relationship, sometimes you just have to separate yourself from that person. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you hate them. It just means that for your safety, for your protection, or to keep you from sinning, you need to separate yourself from that person, although you can still forgive them. And so another thing I thought about was how respectful Jacob was to Esau. He was very respectful. He called him my Lord. And I don't know, maybe that was just a thing in that day with your older sibling or the eldest brother that you call them Lord. I don't know, but he was very, very respectful to him. And I really, really, really like that. I like to see respect in today's society because, that's very much lacking now. The third thing is that I was glad that Jacob came with all those gifts. And to me, he was trying to make up for what he did to Esau. So for me, I took it as a sign of his repentance. Now, I could be wrong because a lot of times things are, like I said, it was custom back in that day, or it was tradition back in that day for you to do certain things. I haven't read the history or the customs back then. I haven't studied it, so I could be wrong. But I'm thinking that when he brought those gifts to Esau, that was a way of him repenting or asking for forgiveness from Esau. That's the way I took it. Now, I could be wrong. Please, please, please add your comments down below. Let me know what you thought about this chapter. It was very interesting. I was so glad that they reconciled in the end and they came back together as a loving family. I was so glad to see that. I love when families stick together and love on each other. It's a beautiful thing, and this strengthens the family unit. So again, thank you all for listening to Weekday Wind Down with the Word. Have a blessed weekend and let me know your thoughts. Okay, take care. Bye.